On his recent visit to Israel, American Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta was unable to get a clear commitment from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Ehud Barak that Israel would not take action against Iranian nuclear facilities without coordinating such an operation with the United States. According to American officials who were briefed about the visit, the two Israeli leaders only answered Panetta's questions regarding Israel's intentions towards Iran in a general manner. Panetta arrived in Israel on October 3rd, and in addition to Netanyahu and Barak, also met with Israel Defense Forces Chief of Staff Benny Gantz and senior members of the IDF General Staff. The U.S. Defense Secretary's visit came against the backdrop of members of the American administration not understanding where Israel was headed in regards to the threat from Iran. Officials in the U.S. administration noted that in the months prior to Panetta's visit, there had been a substantial reduction in Israeli pronouncements on the Iranian issue, both in public but also privately, through diplomatic and defense channels. American sources said that America needed to get a clearer picture from Israel regarding where things stood. Defense Minister Ehud Barak addressed rumors that Israel was planning a military attack against Iran's nuclear facilities, saying that lethal and paralyzing enough, sanctions could be effective in halting Tehran's nuclear ambitions, but no option should be taken off the table. On Sunday, the Histadrut Labor Federation published the list of workplaces slated to strike as of Monday morning, including attorneys who will be joining the strike for the first time in history. The preparations for the general strike have begun after talks between Histadrut chairman Ofer Einai and the Treasury Budget Director reached a deadlock. The Histadrut is demanding that the state and private sector minimize the employment of outside contractors and hire most of them as full-fledged workers in the civil service, local authorities, and large private companies. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called on the Histadrut leaders to find a solution for the outside contractors' problem without launching a strike. Netanyahu said at the start of the weekly cabinet meeting, "I believe a just and responsible solution can be found for the outside contractors' issue. Just, because we are all aware of the outside contractors' real distress. Responsible, because we must reach a solution which won't damage Israel's economy at a time when global economies face a serious crisis. I believe there is no need to disrupt the life of Israel's citizens and no need to cause heavy damages to the economy. My government and the Histadrut see eye to eye on the welfare of workers in Israel." Finance Minister Yuval Steinitz addressed the strike threats as well, saying, "I hope this unnecessary strike will be averted. A strike, even 1 week long, can cause irreversible damage while Europe is collapsing." Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Ron Prosser, said over the weekend that his attendance at a luncheon for Marine Le Pen, the leader of France's extreme right-wing party, National Front, and presidential candidate at the UN headquarters in New York on Thursday, was a mistake. Prosser said after the event, "It was an event that I wasn't supposed to be at to begin with, and I got there by accident. When I realized my mistake, I immediately left the event." French media outlets reported widely on Prosser's attendance at the UN event organized in Le Pen's honor. French media noted that the Israeli ambassador shook Le Pen's hand and remained at the event for 20 minutes. French newspapers also published a photograph of Prosser and Le Pen standing together. Ambassador Prosser denied the contents of the French reports in a conversation with Haaretz. "After I saw Marine Le Pen there, I immediately realized that I had no place being there, and I left the room." 71 veterans of the United States military are coming to Israel to spend 10 days touring the country, not in the customary tour bus, but on their own Harley-Davidson motorcycles. The riders are participating in a mission entitled Hope for Israel, whose executive producer Paul Klassen said, "There are many American veterans who are Christians and feel a great kinship to Israel and her veterans. This motorcycle mission is our way to show appreciation to fellow veterans." The participants' bikes were shipped to Israel last month, and during the trip, participants will visit military bases, honor fallen soldiers, and deliver $500,000 million worth of medical supplies donated by the organization's Hope for Israel Relief Fund that also helps Holocaust survivors and Israel's needy. The visit will take bikers from the Golan to Beersheba, visiting much of Israel and its Christian holy places, And the trip's climax will be the epic bike ride from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem's Western Wall.